Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another music class, 30 lessons in 30 days. I think we're going to get 3 videos done today, and we might be able to hit our quota on time by the 25th of April. And then I'm going to take a little break. I've been taking a break, though. I'm working on other things, though, guys. I'm not lazy, I promise. All right, so today we're going to talk about reading music or understanding music across a medium, usually known as a page. But in a second, we're going to get into another medium, which is just learning by ear. And what I'll say before I come out with my hot take that is going to recommend that if you're in the pop rock music, singer songwriter business, learning to read off of a lead sheet, if you're going to pick one of them, is the best way to go. What I will say about these different methods of reading music or absorbing music is you want to be competent at all of them. All right, so we have grand staff, we have chord chart, we have lead sheet, and the one I didn't write down is learning by ear. You're going to want to get good enough at all of them. I can do all of them. The people at my church might disagree because they've put grand staff in front of me before, and I don't do very well. That's because I've spent most of my time working on lead sheets and sometimes chord charts as a guitar player and bass player and things like that. But before we get into the pros and cons, maybe we'll transmit the pros and cons as we go. Let's just define what these three different things is. The first thing is playing by ear. That's pretty self-explanatory. You're not going to have a page. You're not going to really have it explained to you or anything like that. You're going to listen to a thing and try to copy its sound. And over time, you're going to refine this ability to just hear something and copying it. And the beginning of this process, it's good to just learn how to play by ear when you're young, because it can be a very slow and painful process when you're a little bit older. You want to develop your ear when you're young. But one of the reasons I didn't write down by ear on this page is that, people that I've been in bands with and stuff like that before have said, hey, I play by ear, I sing by ear. And my response is usually, who doesn't? Tell me one way of playing music that does not involve playing by ear. You have to see it, and sound is going to come out eventually. And sometimes there's going to be mistakes on the page, and your ear sometimes or sometimes not is going to tell you where those mistakes are or whether something should be different. But what it's really about is what medium are we transferring it into our ear? Because, by ear is basically instantaneous. But if it's off of the page in one of these ways, it's going to be not so instantaneous. There's going to be a little buffer between it becoming not in your ear and in your ear. So I think that in that way, learning and playing by ear is a little bit of a misnomer. A lot of famous musicians, it's said that, Jimi Hendrix played completely by ear. But even then, he had other musicians around that. He's probably looking at someone's fingers. Like, if you're looking at someone's fingers while they play, at that point, you're not playing all by ear. You're playing a little bit by shape. But what I've found when people say it's all by ear, that either becomes like a crutch or something that they're just bragging about, almost like perfect pitch. We haven't done a video on perfect pitch, but when someone does have perfect pitch, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily a good musician. It just means they have this gift or this skill that allows them to know which note is being played, regardless of being able to see it or anything like that. But anyway, just a man's 2 cents or whatever. But yeah, these three different ways of reading music. Number one we'll go through is grand staff. When someone says I read music or I know how to read music, especially on piano, that's what they mean. They're looking at a staff. This is a piano grand staff. Grand staff is only on piano. In things like saxophone or guitar or ukulele, you only have the treble clef. But basically grand staff is you getting told what to do by the page in all ways. The rhythm is written down, the note value is written down, and other things like volume and expression are all written down right here in front of you. Now, it's good to learn grand staff. I am decent. Well, I'm kind of bad, but I know how to play grand staff. And it's good because you're being told how to do everything. But one of the bad things about it is you're being told how to do everything. Okay, and also you're not, when you're doing grand staff, especially with the left hand, you're not being really asked to figure out how to construct a chord from scratch. You're being told how to construct whatever you're doing with your left hand. Grand staff is really like every one of these have a are all a double-edged sword where, there's good things about it, but the good things about it are also the limitations about it. So the thing with the grand staff is you're just being told what to do with the left hand, and you're not being told, hey, this is a C minor chord. You're just playing a C minor chord, not knowing that it is one of those. And I've had classical teachers before that I'm like, oh, that's a C minor 7 flat 5. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, wow, you're this good of a piano player, but you don't even know the nomenclature for basic chord structure. Maybe not basic, but seventh chord structure. So, that's the one that I think it's very beneficial to learn how to do, but it's not going to be as good as a lead sheet, which is what we'll get to last. Now let's get into what's called a chord chart. Almost everyone in the world has seen this before. I mean, it has like the lyrics, or sometimes if there's no lyrics, it just has the chords. And, people say that this is like how to learn guitar or ukulele. It's also how to learn piano. I mean, is there not a D chord on piano? Is there not a D7 chord? And before I really got into lead sheets, this is how I learned on piano. I mean, I played guitar and bass for a couple years before I played piano, but this is how I learned. I was good enough at reading a chord chart with guitar, so I learned that, on piano, you could create chords just like anything else. So I was working through Beatles books, Beach Boys, classic rock, and stuff like that, learning how to play based on the chord chart. And oftentimes in a chord chart, let me just backtrack 1 second. In grand staff, they're going to have bar lines that denote the measures, how many beats are per measure, the simple division of how to count out the song or the rhythm of the song. Most of the time in a chord chart, there are no bar lines. Okay, it's just going to basically have the chords above the words, and you're going to have to use your ear to figure out when those chords switch. And I don't find that to be that beneficial, especially when there's many different versions of a song. I mean, I have Amazing Grace, How Sweet the Sound up here. You can express that song in a bunch of different ways, and it leaves a lot of guesswork in when actually things shift. When I am teaching a student, and if they just they're like, hey, I'm going to use chord charts. What I try to make them do is bare minimum be able to draw bar lines. Okay, if you can draw bar lines and maybe a time signature, you can you have a lot more information about where the rhythmic divisions are in the song. Which brings me to a lead sheet. To me, a lead sheet, if you're going to pick one of the three, the lead sheet is the best one to do, okay? Because you're going to have bar lines in a lead sheet. You're going to have chord symbols like a chord chart, and you're also going to have right hand melody, or it doesn't have to be necessarily your right hand, but you're going to have notes that make up the melody of the song. And again, this is not my recommendation. I'm not sure if I said this earlier, but this is not my recommendation if you're learning how to play complex classical pieces. And it's also maybe not my recommendation if you're learning just how to strum and sing on the ukulele. But the thing is that the thing that you're singing is going to be the melody. It's going to be the written out melody. So given all of the pros and cons and the trade-offs of the three different systems, I recommend spending 6 to 8, 12 months learning how to read and sight read a lead sheet. Okay, so let's go through the elements of a lead sheet. One thing that throws people off transferring from grand staff to lead sheets is with grand staff, the left hand is on the bottom and the right hand is on the top. But in a lead sheet, the chord being played, which usually is going to be your left hand, is going to be on the top. So you're reading with the left hand up here and you're playing a D chord, a D dominant 7, a G chord, back to a D chord. This is not an actual rhythm. These are just dots or whatever. I'm just kind of showing you a skeleton version of this. While you're doing that, the right hand is going to be playing whatever note and rhythm value with the right hand. And there's going to be bar lines, and often there's going to be lyrics written below the melody. So if you can see that, there's no perfect way of doing it. The perfect way of doing it would be learning everything by ear the first time and having a photographic memory and committing it to memory and never messing up. But we're humans here. So we have to operate within the realm of imperfection and limitation and things like that. So I would recommend learning how to play lead sheets. Okay, I've many lead sheet books downstairs: Christmas fake book, jazz real book, classic rock pop fake book, all these things. And what they can also do, another thing that's beneficial about this, and this is a big part of how I got good at music, is they can fit an amazing amount of songs inside of one book. I mean, the jazz real book has like 500 songs in it. You could never, if you were to grand staff and write out every single note to what you're supposed to do over that stuff, it would be, I don't know, I have no idea. It would be probably a 3,000 page book. You have to break it up. Now, I do have also jazz arrangements downstairs in my bookshelf that are full arrangements of how to play, take the A Train song might be like 13, 14 pages or something like that. So one thing that I'll cover before we close out the video is with the left hand on a lead sheet, you have to create the chords. You have to know how to play the chords. But what it's going to force you to do is start to improvise a little bit. It's going to force you to play the version of a D chord that you choose. Now, not all of them are going to sound the same. Not all of them are going to sound exactly good. You have to pick the range of the keyboard to actually play in. But in my experience, I think that if you learn to do a little bit of improvising, it's going to take you a long way. But if you never learn to improvise at all, you can be one of the best technical piano players on the planet, but you're going to lack a certain mental muscle that improvising really helps with. And that definitely is true when you start getting into songwriting and things like that. But, that's try to keep these videos relatively short, but I recommend learning, if you're going to learn one of the systems, grand staff, chord chart, and lead sheet, I recommend learning to play off of a lead sheet that's going to have the melody, it's going to have the bar lines, it's going to have the key signature, the time signature, it's going to have the chords, and it's going to teach you how to play pop rock tunes relatively quick, which is kind of one of the points. It's one of my specialties with teaching class. Like, I'm not a big classical teacher. I can teach you how to do this stuff, but I mean, with classical, it's just like learn to read it and practice it a ton over and over until you got it. That's a lot of learning how to read with grand staff, is just practice a lot, read the music, blah, blah, blah. With lead sheets, it's just how to get, if you want to get good at your 50 favorite songs in the next 6 months, lead sheet's going to be the way to go. Chord chart kind of cuts the melody and the specific thing really short, and the grand staff makes it a little too specific. Learn lead sheets. That's what I'm saying. If you take classes with me, that's what we're going to be doing either way. So love you guys. Have a great day. We'll upload a video later. Try to get back on this 30 videos in 30 days thing, and then I'll take a little break. So have a good one, and I'll see you around.